Welcome to China Currents. In this episode, NASA's China phobia flared up again, barring Chinese nationals from participating in any of its programs. Chinese astronauts turned to space station into a documentary set capturing life beyond Earth. China's Customs Authority released its latest trade data, and they speak volumes about where China-U.S. relations truly stand. China sanctioned a Japanese senator who spread China-hating rumors. The twist? He was once Chinese. 4 adorable police dogs stole the spotlight. Their retirement ceremony drew screams from 3 million viewers. Now let's start today's China Currents. The first story comes from NASA, which once again showed its insecurity when it comes to China. Last week, NASA confirmed it has barred Chinese nationals on U.S. visas from its facilities and networks, laying bare Washington's ever-growing concern over Beijing's advances in space technology. Although the agency has generally restricted the employment of Chinese citizens, those on U.S. visas without links to Chinese government institutions or state-owned enterprises had previously contributed as contractors, graduate students, or university researchers. Last Wednesday, NASA spokeswoman Bethany Stevens said the agency had taken internal action regarding Chinese nationals. This includes restricting physical and cybersecurity access to our facilities, materials, and network to ensure the security of our work. There is no doubt that the US sees China as its predominant rival in space. Both countries plan to send crewed missions to the moon within the next 5 years, with NASA aiming for 2027 and China targeting 2030. Acting NASA Administrator Sean Duffy recently told Fox News that beating China in the space race was critically important. Lawmakers from both parties also stressed that US must return to the moon before China establishes a foothold there. By contrast, China has taken a more open stance. The China National Space Administration recently approved applications from 2 US universities, Brown University and Stony Brook University, both recipients of the NASA funding, to borrow lunar samples from the Chang'e 5 mission. Clearly, China still envisions a future in which mutually beneficial cooperation in space is possible. Next, let's turn to a new documentary now showing in Chinese theaters, Shenzhou 13, or more poetically by its Chinese title, Beyond the Window Lies the Blue Planet, 窗外是蓝星. Aside from computer-generated launch and return shots, the film was entirely shot by 3 astronauts, documenting their 183 days aboard the Chinese space station after the 2021 launch of Shenzhou 13. In its first week, the film quickly earned an 8.6 out of 10 rating on China's popular review site Douban, ranked among the top 3 daily box office hits, and received enthusiastic endorsements from Guo Fan, director of The Wandering Earth, China's most successful sci-fi film. Despite their amateur filming style, the astronauts successfully captured both their own personalities and what life is like on space station, including eating, exercising, resting, repairing equipment, conducting experiments, performing spacewalks, taking safety precautions, and even celebrating the Chinese New Year. The documentary also retains stunning Earth views, mountains, rivers, oceans, cities through the station's windows. Director Zhu Yiran later remarked in an interview, "Isn't this what a shared future for humanity means? We all live on a tiny planet. And this gift from those who bravely go into the space shows us sights we can never see from Earth." Now let's look at China's latest trade data. On September 8th, China's General Administration of Customs released figures for the first 8 months of 2025. China's total trade in goods reached 29.57 trillion yuan, up 3.5% year-on-year. The data highlighted growth in trade with the EU and ASEAN, but a decline with the US. ASEAN remained China's largest trading partner, with bilateral trade reaching 4.93 trillion yuan, up 9.7%, accounting for 16.7% of China's total. The EU ranked second, with trade totaling 3.88 trillion yuan, up 4.3%, or 13.1% of the total. The US ranked third, with trade falling 13.5% to 2.73 trillion yuan, or 9.2% of the total. Another highlight was exports to Africa. Chinese exports to Africa grew 25.9% year-on-year, far outpacing other regions. Bloomberg reported that exports to Africa this year have already surpassed the full-year level of 2020, reaching $122 billion and expected to exceed $200 billion by the year's end. Nigeria, South Africa, Egypt, Liberia, and Algeria accounted for about 44% of African purchases. The surge stems from Africa's large population and strong demand for infrastructure and daily goods, combined with China's competitive pricing. Of 18 major product categories exported to Africa in the first 7 months, 14 saw price declines, led by transformers and converters, which dropped 39%. This growing trade not only provides Africa with affordable goods, but also helps diversify its debt portfolio. Several African governments are considering converting part of their dollar-denominated debt into yuan, easing repayment pressure. And moving on to China's first-ever sanction on Japanese senators. On September 8th, China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs announced counter-sanctions on Japanese Senator Ishihara Akira, known in Chinese as Shi Ping, freezing his assets in China, banning transactions with Chinese organizations and individuals, and prohibiting his entry. Born in China, Shi Ping moved to Japan in 1988, earned a PhD, and became a Japanese citizen in 2007. Since then, he has aligned himself with Japan's right-wing politicians and separatists from China's Taiwan and Tibet regions. He has denied the Nanjing massacre, urged Japan to scrap its pacifist constitution, and even supported the development of nuclear weapons. Yet his views, expressed specifically to pander to Japanese extreme nationalist faction, failed to gain wide acceptance. When he ran for Senate this February, he was harshly criticized. Ironically, some even accused him of being a spy aiming to usurp Japanese power. From China's perspective, his hysterical anti-China rhetoric seems especially unfounded, given that he has not visited China for years and relies solely on the media for information. Chinese scholar Jin Canrong once described such figures as suffering from a colonial mentality. He argues that while China's reform and opening up achieved great success by learning from the West, it has also produced unfortunate byproducts, individuals who lost a sense of self-identity in the process. And finally, let's leave human disputes behind and step into the world of dogs. Last week in eastern China, 4 military dogs trained for bomb detection and emergency rescues were honored in a retirement ceremony that drew more than 3 million online views. Wearing red flowers, they completed their final drills before joining adoptive families. Matt, a 10-year-old Belgian Malinois, helped arrest 5 people involved in gambling in 2017, which is illegal in mainland China. Carrie, a 10-year-old Springer Spaniel, overcame a broken leg to return to explosive detection. Ma Jingtian, another 10-year-old Belgian Malinois, rescued 3 people during a typhoon in 2019. Ye Li, an 8-year-old Black Labrador, joined the service at 5 months and excelled in every mission, including one successfully identifying a methane package. In China, military dogs usually train for 1 to 2 years, serve 5 to 8 years in units such as the Navy, Air Force, or People's Armed Police, and receive specialized care. After retirement, they may remain with their trainers or be adopted by vetted volunteers with annual follow-up visits. And that's all for today. Thank you for watching this episode of China Currents. If you have any thoughts or comments, please leave them below and see you next time.